What is going on, faithful, on this Monday night? Regardless of you're on the East Coast or West Coast, I really wanted to this week have some of the best minds on YouTube and everywhere who cover the 49ers and kind of pick their brain about this past draft and some of the other news that's going on with the 49ers. You've seen Rohan before. I had him on a little bit before the draft, and I figured if I had Larry on the other day, who's got a great mind for football, and I thought Rohan would also be up for the challenge because there's a good amount of stuff to talk about, even though there's really not a lot to talk about. So, without further ado, I'll bring on Rohan. How's it going, brother?
How you doing? I'm doing great, man. Great Friday evening today here out in California. How you doing?
Pretty good. Did I say Monday evening?
I don't know. Maybe you said it, but no, I think we're good. But
oh man, whatever. I always have
a solid start.
Intros are always the worst for me. Like I have all this stuff playing out of my head, and then as soon as I hit record, it all goes away. So, yeah. So last time I had you on, we talked pre-draft. We talked about Garoppolo and Trey and the Debo stuff, and pretty much a lot of that is kind of all still there. But we had this draft thing that happened last week, so. Before we get going on that, I just wanted to ask you what's new with you and your channel. What's going on with you outside your channel as far as, stuff you're writing or anything, whatever you want to say.
So, I mean, I'm just keeping it busy mainly. I got the daily shows in a way with all sorts of guests. So I'm definitely very excited to be on here. Thank you for bringing me on and giving me the opportunity. But daily shows, be it with my co-host Marco Martinez on our podcast or with guys like Sunil, Wayne Breezy, and all these different kind of outfits that I try and get going, just try and keep myself busy in the 49ers world in a way. And then on my writing side, I got guys I do write for 49ers Web Zone. So if you guys want written content, you can go check out there. I try and post at least a piece a day. Draft time was busy because I was covering the draft for the organization. I think I wrote about 18 pieces over the weekend. So that was crazy. But any draft content, any type of 49er content, be sure to check that out. And that's where you guys can stay tuned with the latest 49ers news.
Yeah, Rohan actually has his channel, Rohan Chakravarthi, his channel. I want to see more people migrate to there, guys. If he's on here, he's on all these shows. Everybody knows who he is. You got to put two and two together and actually go to his channel, and then you can see him all the time. Because I've seen you. I've seen you on with Larry. I've seen you on with Breezy. I actually was just kind of introduced to Sunil. I've seen him, but I didn't put two and two together. So we're trying for something down the road. But everybody that knows me on Twitter knows that I put out a post the other day that said I was 0 for life. I was trying for a lot of people to get guests because post draft I really wanted to talk to some people that were people that have knowledge like yourself and Larry and Jesse and all those guys. And I said I was 0 for life, and you were like, "I'll be 1 for life. I'll come on the show." And I was like, "Okay."
Yeah, I mean, I saw that, and I was like,
I wasn't trying to be like, I wasn't negative or depressed when I was saying it. I was tongue firmly in cheek. It was more like,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you tweet that out, I gotta show my boy some love. Had to just slide up in the DMs and say I'm free. And
absolutely, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, 100%.
I want to hit the comments real quick before we get on. Ray, Arvizu. He says Trey Lance rumors all the noise. We got CarCast in the building. Hey, what's going on, young man? And then Ray says West Coast 626. Yeah, I'm an East Coaster all the way, man. All you West Coast guys, you guys are lucky. I live in Bills country here in Rochester, New York. So I figure, we hit some of these, the more popular draft picks. So of course, we're going to hit on Drake Jackson first, edge out of USC. How much did you do a lot of study on Drake coming out, or was he a little bit of a surprise pick? And if you didn't originally look at him, have you looked at him post draft and kind of got an idea what the Niners got?
Yeah, so I actually did do a good amount of work post pre-draft, but it wasn't 49ers related. I was just trying to get my edge rankings in a way because I was trying to scout the top maybe 10, 15, 20 edges, and Drake Jackson was on that list. So I did a good amount of work with Drake Jackson, specifically looked at his freshman tape, which was the tape which was most consistent because we saw Drake Jackson play as a true edge rusher. That was his best year, in my opinion, in college, 5.5 sacks of production, and he was a true edge rusher. Then in 2020 and 2021, he kind of shifted roles. The coaching staff said, oh, we want to deploy you as a linebacker. We want to deploy you in somewhat of a hybrid role. And with all of that, Drake Jackson was forced to change weights. I know he started at 275, dropped down to maybe 255 even when he was playing linebacker, somewhere around there, and even lower at times. And really, to me, what he did was he filled his role pretty well. So I personally, I was not expecting Drake Jackson to be there at 61, especially after Boye Mafe went at pick 40 to the Seattle Seahawks. When you saw that, you're like, okay, in my opinion, Jackson would have been the next edge off the board. Barring, I mean, nobody really knew where David Ajabo was going to go because he had the injury with the torn Achilles at the pro day. So you don't know exactly how long that slide will last. But he went at 45. Then from 45 to 61, I was like, edge is one of the most important positions in football. There's no way in hell Drake Jackson's going to fall. And instead, the only other edge rusher picked in that time was Sam Williams to the Dallas Cowboys. I believe it's 56 or 54, one of the two. And so the 49ers fall with a potential first-round talent in their laps. And, I mean, with such a talented class, maybe Drake Jackson isn't a first-round talent. To me, I had him graded as a second-rounder. But still, at 61, that's insane value to get a guy at a premium position like the edge position at 61 without having to trade up. So I really like the pick, and I do think that if we utilize him like he's going to be like a true edge rusher, I know he himself said he's up to 275, which means the 49ers do probably plan to deploy him as a true edge rusher. I think in pass rushing situations, it's going to be a pretty nice duo of him and Nick Bosa.
Yeah, it's some of the reports or a lot of the comments were, don't look at his numbers. At least I think it might have been John Lynch. He kind of called him a disruptor. Yeah, because in his numbers, if all that moving around position wise definitely would affect somebody's number. You go from being an outside pass rusher to maybe a base end to a linebacker. It's got to affect you in some way. But yeah, I thought edge at 61, but I wasn't positive because of our need at safety, or at least our perceived need at safety. I don't know what's going on with all that, but yeah, pleasantly surprised. And the more and more I've listened to a lot of people that know what they're talking about, I'm like super encouraged. A lot of people are talking about his athleticism and his bend and his just athletic ability. So I'm like, oh man, it's all about staying healthy, man, and just making it through training camp and getting into the season. That's all I'm really worried about. Because the Niners, you look at the Niners roster right now, and you see how much just good, that between the undrafted free agents in the draft and guys that they brought in the offseason, and they have the potential to be really deep. So,
yeah,
it's kind of definitely a wait and see. We switch over to offense in the second round. The Niners picked Tyrone Davis Price, the running back out of LSU. I took a temperature on Twitter that day, and a lot of people were not very satisfied with that pick.
I mean, it was interesting because I was at the 49ers draft party, right? And when you're there, you expect everyone to just cheer when the 49ers pick comes through, right? Drake Jackson got a ton of cheers and stuff because it's not necessarily fans. I mean, they are fans, but they're also just season ticket holders just there to be there in a way. And so when pick number 93 came on, I think there was a moment of silence before the cheers started because people were just shocked at the running back. I don't think there were any like outbursts in a way. Nobody wants to do that there. But there was just a moment of silence before the cheers started to come on. It just symbolized the moment in a way where taking a running back at 93. And I thought of this in two ways, right? I thought of it in the pick, and then I thought of it in the production. To me, the pick-wise, I think you reached because running back at 93 wasn't a necessity in such a deep class. I remember looking in the sixth round, guys like Tyler Goodson out of Iowa was still there, and different players were still there. Jerome Ford went in the fifth round, and I thought he could have been a third-round talent. He went to Buffalo, I believe. And so you have these talents that fell to the fifth, sixth round, but we've known that Kyle Shanahan gets that guy at the position he values very heavily in the running back position. And so that's where Ty Davis Price fits in. He's a guy who you probably run between the tackles. He's got great explosiveness, not necessarily high-end speed. 4.48 is still pretty good, though.
Pretty fast.
He's got the explosiveness, though, that 1.53, I believe, 10-yard split. That's in the 93rd percentile of all running backs. For example, I know a lot of people put it out, but Tyreek Hill was in the 150 range. So the similarity there and the explosiveness should just make 49ers fans excited. And also, the reason he probably wasn't seen as highly as a running back compared to others in this class was just because he was around a poor system. The LSU offensive line was one of the worst I watched when I was watching tape. Quarterback really isn't that great. And so it's not really a recipe for success, yet Ty Davis Price made it work, still averaged 4.5 yards a carry in an SEC conference where you have defenses like Alabama, Florida, Georgia that you go up against, So that's what kind of intrigued me about Davis Price. I don't necessarily think that it was a great pick based on the value, but I like the player. I think he also adds a bit in pass protection. I think that could maybe give him some added reps as a third down back, but he's a complement now to Elijah Mitchell. You have a 1-2 punch. You don't necessarily have to worry as much about injury concerns because you're not using one as a bell cow. I envision something similar to 2019 where there was a 137 carry split between Mostert and Tevin Coleman, with Mitchell being your Mostert type of guy and Davis Price being your Coleman type of guy. So it was an interesting pick for sure, especially with two safeties on the board in Nick Cross and Kirby Joseph. So that's one side of it. And then I'll let you respond before I go with the other side.
Yeah, I'm trying to think before I lose my train of thought. The Niners, to me, I wonder if this pick was what the Niners thought that they were getting last year in Trey Sermon, and they realized that what they thought they were getting, what they actually had when they practiced, because we never really saw them in games much. I wonder if this is a little bit of almost like a redo, like, okay, we're gonna try this again.
Yeah.
Because and to me also running back, a lot of people say, why running back? I'm not necessarily high on the pick either, but we went into last year with so many running backs and everybody said how deep our running back core was. And then what we get to week 2 or 3 and we're down to barely anybody. So
Deebo Samuel played running back in week 10 going forward because we just didn't have the depth at the position.
Right. And you look at a guy like JaMychal Hasty, it looks like he could be the odd man out eventually. And this it's a really crowded backfield. It's good to have the bodies and it's good to have the depth because it makes, when you actually whittle it down and pick who's going to be on your 53, it's going to be a really talented 53. So what else did you want to touch on with the pick?
Yeah, so the other part is I wanted to talk about the production, right? When you look at the pick, you're like, great, the value isn't going to be there. But in my opinion, I think Ty Davis Price is going to be the most impactful rookie for the 49ers in 2022. He's the one with the clearest role in the offense or defense. Like Drake Jackson, he's a pass rusher, great potential and stuff, but he still is competing with a good amount of guys. You still got Kamoko Toure out there, Jordan Willis, Charles Matthew. And so the 49ers might not be inclined to rush him out there immediately and instead let him adjust to the new weight, let him adjust to playing as a true edge rusher and let him adjust the new system. I have no doubt that he'll be a good player per se, but it might not be immediately, although I'd like to see that. And so for Ty Davis Price, I think there is an immediate role. I think he's immediate slots in as running back number 2 on the depth chart behind Elijah Mitchell, and potentially could even start games because he provides an imposing physical presence in going in between the tackles, which the 49ers love to start games with. And so for me, I think when we're looking back at it in a year, Ty Davis Price could have the potential to be the most impactful rookie in this class. And when you look at the production that he's going to have next year, people are going to be like, oh, really? So does the pick matter? And I gave this example in a space last night. If Elijah Mitchell was drafted in the 3rd round last year, where Trey Sermon was drafted at pick 88, running back in the 3rd round again, right? Not a great value pick, but Elijah Mitchell had 963 yards, 4.7 yards per carry, and a good number of touchdowns. Are you going to complain about the pick in a year, or are you going to praise it because of the production? And the reality is you're going to praise it because of the production. So I think in a year, despite the value of the pick not being that high, you're still going to praise the pick because I think it could be one of your more impactful picks in 2022.
I always have the viewpoint, and I've said this before with other people on stream. To me, it's a meritocracy. It's whoever helps you win, regardless of draft position or where they're from. If they're an undrafted free agent, you put your 53 best players on the field. I really don't care. I hope TDP is good. And I think he will be just because of what he's walking into and who's coaching him and just the surrounding players. I thought it was interesting that when Kyle was asked if this pick was in any correlation to try to relieve some of the carries and some of the just the overall load on Debo, and he said, yeah, it could be. He didn't really run away from it. So, they're smart if they are trying to appease one of their best players. I think that's good business. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to training camp. I don't want it to rush it too fast because I do like the summer. I like warm weather. So as much as I want for training camp and football to happen, I could wait a little bit. But the Niners go at pick 105 with the wide receiver Danny Gray from SMU. I think this is maybe their closest to their a true burner that they've had maybe since Ted Ginn. I don't want to say Goodwin because Goodwin was so inconsistent and out of the lineup.
Yeah, so then I guess, yeah, it would be Ted Ginn. And it's an interesting pick for sure. To me, personally, like, I characterize good picks, like, just based on the pick itself and then my favorite picks. And this guy here, Danny Gray at SMU, was my favorite pick. I was on him. Like, he was one of my favorites from the jump. I remember back in February, I did a mock draft, my first 49ers mock draft of the year, and I selected Danny Gray, I think, in the 6th or the 7th round, where PFN, I remember, had him ranked at 348. Yeah, 348. And I said, this guy is going to be something different. You guys better watch out. Well, what do we know? He gets drafted in the NFL draft at 105. And so for me, I think this is a very solid pick. And it just shows the focus towards Trey Lance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Danny Gray plays to Trey Lance's strengths. He's not necessarily the most polished wide receiver right now. I think he has a good amount to improve in route running. But the two things that he really has that the 49ers want in their offense is yards after the catch. I think that he can replicate that at the NFL level. I think he's tough enough at the NFL level where like that's sustainable. And then the other thing is the deep speed, which is synonymous with Trey Lance's game. Obviously, we don't see a lot of deep throws last year with Garoppolo, but with Trey Lance, right now, at least in my opinion, his strength is the deep ball because that's the place where he doesn't necessarily have to leverage the power in his arm and have to worry about touch. Instead, he can worry about airing it out and using the power that he has in that arm to make those throws. That's how we saw the line drive to Deebo Samuel for a touchdown last year. And so when I look at it, I'm like, Danny Gray is a great guy because with the Trey Lance offense, there's no such thing as clear out routes anymore. Every route, even a clear out route, is a route. We saw that last year, week 16, Trey Lance fires a 35-yard touchdown pass to Deebo Samuel, who was running a clear out route. That's not a route designed in the offense. It's a clear out route, but Trey Lance has the ability to improvise. And so if you have Danny Gray, he's a deep threat that requires attention and also can serve as a clear out route guy, but still remain a factor in the game. But I think Danny Gray, at least, I think it's a good pick because the way that you improve Danny Gray's game is also improving Trey Lance's confidence. And that is getting him the ball behind the line of scrimmage or close to the line of scrimmage, because that's the way he can focus on those drop issues by getting easier passes. And then on top of that, you take the load off Trey Lance's arms, where he doesn't necessarily have to make the biggest of throws. Instead, the offense is a little more simplistic. Danny Gray works at what he does best, yards after the catch, and Trey Lance has that confidence increase. So I like the pick for sure for Lance and for the just for the 49ers as well.
One thing I want to see from Lance this year is the ability to kind of take a little bit off the fastball in the short to intermediate area.
Yeah.
We all know what he can do downfield, and he can make a lot of those outside the number throws, the outs, the digs. But I want to see him in the underneath stuff. And I think the best way to help him get a little bit of rhythm sometimes is those screen passes. And the Niners got, two guys now with, if, Deebo ends up coming back, which I think he will. And then with Gray, I mean, guys, you get the ball in space and let them do some things. Deebo's one thing in space, more like a wrecking ball, bowling ball. I want to see a guy with some top end speed in some space and see what kind of damage he can do. And the Niners receivers all love blocking. They're all unselfish. I look at their receiving core right now with, if you look at it with everybody healthy, you got Ayuk, Deebo, Juwan Jennings, Danny Gray, Ray Ravencloud, and some maybe an undrafted free agent here, and they look pretty good. It's going to be interesting. They all got all different types of body types. They got They got a big, tall slot guy. They got the kind of the squashy, little, squashy muscular guy in Debo. They got a rangy 5'11" guy with gigantic long arms in Ayuk, who can, he's got his catch radius is ridiculous. So I'm stoked. With me, it's all about health, brother. If we can stay healthy, at least right now, you look on paper and you look at some of the projections that some 49er content creators are putting out there. It's pretty exciting. Going to position that's not really exciting is offensive line, but it is something of concern. The Spencer Burford pick at pick 134. A lot of people say he's got the versatility to play either tackle or guard. If you had to guess just right now in the early part of May, where do you think do you think he's more of a rotational piece, a swing tackle, or do you think he could end up being actually someone who, can contribute this year? And if he does contribute this year, where could you see him?
Yeah, so I honestly think he projects right now as guard. I don't think he's got the size to play tackle at the NFL level.
Yeah, he's only 304 pounds at 6'4".
Yeah, 304, 6'4", but he's got the athleticism that you want out of a guy. And I think with the athleticism that he has and the power that he plays with, I think he plays to a pretty nice play strength that can deal with those guys on the interior. I think he best profiles as a guard. And so when you just look at the 49ers depth chart right now, right, there is an open guard spot at right guard. We don't necessarily know who's going to slot in there right now. Could it be Daniel Brunskill? Could it be Jalen Moore? Or could one of these rookies come up and kind of try and get in the way and compete? And so I think Burford is in line right now to compete at right guard. However, obviously, that isn't a position that he played last year. I think he played left tackle last year, although he has experience at both tackle spots and guard and right guard. So he has some knowledge of the position. He played guard at the Senior Bowl as well, so that's important. But I don't know necessarily if he's going to be a starter for this year in 2021, especially because you have to have that acclimation period, get more reps in at guard, and whereas there are other guys who've been doing that for the entire year. Like I think Jalen Moore, Kyle Shanahan was excited about, alluded to him playing a bit of guard, so I'd assume he's been working on that this entire offseason. Daniel Brunskill obviously has been all around the offensive line, and so I do think that he's a quality depth piece for this for the year. And for that reason, I don't necessarily know what his projection should be in 2022 because I don't. We obviously don't know. If an injury occurs, then yeah, you slot those guys in. And the 49ers had injuries last year, right? Trent Williams missed 2 games. We had McKivitt start one. We had Moore start. McGlinchey obviously out for half the year. We had Moore start over there. And then we had Tom Cotton start for a good amount of time. And so these injuries do occur where you can't rule out Spencer Burford not playing in 2021 like Aaron Banks potentially did, but it just adds to the quality amount of depth, and the 49ers should probably have high hopes of for him. Probably plays right guard in the future if Aaron Banks slots in at left guard.
I don't want to say that the Niners are just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing if it sticks, but I will say that they've put a lot of pieces, whether it's undrafted free agents or draft picks. They made a later pick on an offensive line and an offensive tackle as well from Fordham. I'm not going to get too much into them, but I feel like the more guys you have on working for a position, I think the dividends can end up being great. So, it was weird. This draft in this free agency period, I feel like the Niners have done just a lot of like addressing of depth. Where a team like the Rams is top heavy. And they have like elite, like Hall of Fame worthy guys at like certain positions. The Niners have that at 4 or 5 positions on their team. But if you look at the Niners, certain depth on certain position groups like running back, defensive line, linebacker. I mean, they are deep. They are really deep. Somebody in the comments made a good point about the tight end position being kind of thin. I agree with that. Kind of an off-topic thing, but I know they brought in an undrafted guy from I think North Carolina, some tight end. I forget his name. Are
you saying in what do you call it? Undrafted free agency?
Yeah, it was an undrafted free agent. I don't know if he's on the initial list.
Garrett Walston,
possibly. That sounds familiar. Yeah, that is one position. I think the 49ers, it's like they got Kittle up here, and then it's like because no one really produced last year other than Kittle, and Kittle had his problems with injuries and production last year. So, you can't have it all. You can't bang it all out in 1 year or, one draft or one free agency period. But, as a whole, the Niners are a pretty prolific, pretty talented team. So, quick take on Sam Womack. Is he I'm trying to think of the name. Is he a replacement for K'Wan Williams in the slot? Is that pretty much what you see his job as, or do you think he could be an outside guy?
I don't think he slots in and outside. I think he himself alluded to it. I think at 5'10", 189, he probably is a primary inside corner, although he does have the outside versatility. We saw that obviously he played outside at Toledo for a portion of time. So I do think he slots primarily in as a slot cornerback in the NFL. The one thing about Womack, I don't know also, will he win the battle between him and Deommodore Lenoir this year? Deommodore Lenoir obviously was projected to start this year, drafted last year with the intention of starting him in the slot in 2022. He had some reps on outside corner because they had some depth issues last year with Mosley being out at the beginning of the year. But I do believe that Lenoir right now is the favorite to win the slot, or actually, I don't know if he's the favorite, but he's at least in the competition. You have Jason Verrett, who you just signed back in.
I was just going to ask you about that.
Yeah, and I think honestly, right now he should probably slot set up in the slot, at least for that competition. Should you keep healthy? I think that you want to keep Mosley and Ward as your outside guys.
Yep.
Verrett at 5'9", 5'10", 176. I think his build kind of indicates that he probably ends up in the slot, and you have a pretty solid trio there. So I think actually Verrett likely is the favorite if he remains healthy during this period of time. But you got another guy in Womack who can compete. Do I think Womack makes the 53? That's a very interesting question because we have so much cornerback depth. I think there are 10 guys that can compete for 6 spots. And so if Womack doesn't necessarily win those battles, what's up, Jesse? Last Second Sports there.
Thank you, Jesse.
But if Womack doesn't necessarily win those battles, then you might see him relegated to the practice squad, where since a lot of people didn't have him necessarily on their radar, he might be able to sneak past waivers and make it to the practice squad.
Like I said, in certain position groups on this team, we got numbers, and like I said, sometimes it could be the thought of, we're just throwing things at the wall, but it's why not have a lot of depth, and why not put in as many people into that competition as possible so that you get the best turnout at that said position. So I'm totally for it. The Verrett pick was interesting to me because I thought they were going to do it. And I see it as a low risk, high reward. I mean, he's barely costing the 49ers anything. It sucks because he's so good when he's healthy, but he's just never healthy. To me, he's more of a luxury to the 49ers. I don't see him, Lynch made a comment like, when he's healthy, he's a starter level. I just don't see him as a starter anymore in this league just because he can't stay healthy. I feel like if you use him in a measured and controlled way and you don't have him on the field a ton, I feel like you could preserve them, and have, down the stretch in the season where somebody might be nicked up, you slide him into a starting cornerback role for a game or two, and you don't miss a freaking beat. So hopefully, he can make it. Like you said, there's a lot of depth at that position, so who knows? But just want to say thank you to Jesse real quick from Last Second Sports for the $5 super. My man, super supportive guy, great channel. Go give him a look. He is fantastic. He keeps showing me up by just, blowing past me in subs and everything, but that's a whole other conversation. No, I'm just playing. But yeah, Jesse Naylor from Last Second Sports, check him out. You can find him on Twitter, and you can find him on YouTube as well. So good dude.
Guy. Amazing guy.
Very good guy. I'm trying to think where I could go here. We could look at the pick of Leah Davis, defensive tackle.
Ooh, yeah.
A lot. I personally, when I see his body type and I see his size, I'm thinking, oh, it's a replacement for DJ Jones. But, I had Larry on the other day, and he kind of pretty much told me he's a completely different type of play style. Definitely less of an anchor, but he's his movement and his athleticism between the tackles is pretty good. And I told Larry that I wasn't a big fan of Kentavious Street because, of him getting washed out of plays, and just his ability against the run was pretty substandard. So
right. That was
Do
a
you?
part of the reason why they let him go this offseason.
Yeah. What's your take on Leah Davis?
I'll actually disagree a bit with Larry here. I don't necessarily think he's that different from DJ Jones. And what I mean by that is we can talk about play style, but I think like when we're in this type of defense, really the traits are the most important thing. And I think when you look at it from a traits perspective, the two players are similar, in my opinion, because you both have 300-ish, 305-pound bodies in both players with superior athleticism for their size. And
Right.
so Leah Davis obviously used to play linebacker, so he's got the bend of a linebacker at the defensive tackle position, which is crazy. And he's got the athleticism, he's got explosiveness. So he is a disruptor. I think he's a great he can you can slot him in at the one tech or the three tech, which means if Javon Kinlaw wants to play nose tackle, you can slot him in there. If not, you can have Ark Armstead over there in the three tech. You can have Hassan Ridgeway over there in the three tech. You can just be versatile. And to me,
Yeah.
I really like the pick, not only because the player probably should have gone earlier had he not torn his ACL, but also
Right.
because of the injury, you can now stash him on the PUP list or the NFI list, and you get to carry an extra defensive lineman body. And the 49ers value that a lot, especially with the amount of depth. I think they've got 14 guys to compete for 10, 11 spots.
That's
So Leah
awesome.
Davis just adds you an extra body that you don't necessarily have to count towards the 53 man because he's going to be injured to start the year.
He is coming off the injury. You know, some question if he's going to actually even make an impact this year. The one thing I've from talking to other people that cover the Niners is he definitely looks like he could be someone that would be used in their NASCAR package. Where they're just all balls to the wall coming after the passer. It'd be interesting to see. The Niners like they can come in, again. It's all about the health. If they can stay healthy and come at you in waves, man, this year it'll be man. I get excited if the Niners would be like the Rams and make the big name moves and go after the real top end guys. But it is nice to look at your team and be like, okay, if this guy's out, like the depth again at certain positions is so awesome, and it's that's a credit to Lynch, and I think Adam Peters and whoever else is in charge of the roster building on this team, that they just they give this team the best chance to win by just giving them quality depth throughout the whole team mostly. So I'm definitely looking forward to Kalia Davis and what he can do. Hopefully he gets healthy, whether it's this year or if they redshirt him this year and have him come back in 2023. Once you hit the 6th round, it's okay, I think, to take chances on guys with injuries. You're not like Trent Baalke where you like project a guy in the 1st or 2nd round and you're like, oh, we're gonna take a flyer. It's like you don't take flyers on guys that high in the draft. You take flyers on late round picks. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't cost you anything. So
Right.
the last one I want to touch on, one of the last is the Brock Purdy pick. A lot of people were really happy about this. I didn't know much about him. I knew his name, and that was pretty much it. What was Rohan's reaction to the Brock Purdy pick?
So I'll give you my initial reaction and then my actual reaction. Because initially I'm at 262. I'm hosting this Twitter space during the draft, and I was
Right.
the host. I see Brock Purdy, and I was like, "What are we doing? Really? Another quarterback to the mix?" Like that was my initial reaction.
Okay.
And then I start realizing because it wasn't anything on the player. I think Brock Purdy actually should have been drafted a little higher, probably a round or two higher. But the quarterbacks, because they fell so much in the draft, some like fairly talented late round quarterbacks went undrafted, right? I think we saw EJ Perry go undrafted. I forget the other name that went to Philadelphia that went undrafted. But you see these guys go undrafted. And so to me, I start thinking about it a little more, maybe 5 minutes after that reaction. And I think that the Brock Purdy pick actually was a pretty solid pick, and I'll tell you why. So like I said, right, the player is good, the value is good. And the 49ers last year, what they had was they had Nate Sudfeld in the practice squad for the entirety of the year. You have Garoppolo, Lance, and then Nate Sudfeld there. Brock Purdy essentially takes over that Nate Sudfeld role, and I think he fits pretty well in this offense. To me, a lot of people compared him to Nick Mullins. I actually think he's like a worse version of Jimmy Garoppolo in a way. And I think so that's like the reason that I like it is because you have that playbook already installed. All the team, the entirety of the team kind of knows the playbook. So should an injury occur to any of those top 2 quarterbacks, you have Brock Purdy there, and it's not it's a little bit of an easier transition to a new system. Should that happen, obviously that's an unlikelihood, but it's an easier guy to develop because you've been around a player of that of that play style beforehand. And so that's why I thought it was okay. The other two were the 49ers said in their post-draft press conference that Brock Purdy would have been their number one UDFA had they gone out and gotten him. And so for me, it's a money standpoint. You have a set contract when you draft players in the 7th round. And to me, you're drafting players in the 7th round that you don't believe that you're going to be able to get in UDF as an undrafted free agent. And so Brock Purdy might have gone elsewhere, obviously, as an undrafted free agent. You choose your destination. Brock Purdy could have gone elsewhere. The 49ers locked it in and made sure they got him by drafting him in the 7th round. So that's kind of the value of those 7th round picks, because obviously they're the last pick in the draft. So they probably had other free agency things already planned out. And so they wanted to make sure they got Brock Purdy, quarterback number 3 in a way, and potential to elevate to number 2 once Nate Sudfeld's contract expires next year, because he's also getting up there in age.
Kind of a twofold question for you. There's this silly report that Niners are underwhelmed with Trey Lance. I really don't hold much, value to that opinion right now. And then the other part is, if the Niners go into training camp with Jimmy Garoppolo, does that mean that they don't have faith in Trey Lance? Because you say that he eventually he can be the number 3 quarterback right now. Does that signal that the end of Jimmy Garoppolo is close, or is it just going to be one mess once training camp starts? And what do you? Secondly, and you could answer it, at any point. Like, what's your take on that ridiculous report about Trey Lance?
Yeah, so on the Garoppolo stuff, I mean, I don't know if it has a huge, like the Purdy pick has a huge implication on Garoppolo. I think their plan on Garoppolo is kind of set regardless of whether they drafted Purdy or not. I think they probably did want to go out and get a quarterback. I think that was a little clear. They wanted to go out and get a quarterback, be it at the last pick of the draft or the undrafted free agency realm, where they can develop him on the practice squad. But Garoppolo, I mean, obviously the reason he's on this roster to date is because of the shoulder surgery. That's the main reason.
Right.
If we carry him into training camp, the expectation for me is just he's not going to be available. I don't expect him to take reps in training camp. However, obviously we've been privy to unexpected behavior from the 49ers. We didn't expect this situation to drag on as it is. So would I be shocked if he ended up taking reps at training camp? No, but I'd be very, very surprised, because the 49ers have gone this entire offseason under the notion that they had their top 2 quarterbacks in Lance and Sudfeld on the roster. I know Sudfeld was out with Lance back in March, training in Los Angeles with the receivers. Jimmy Garoppolo obviously was not there, and so that's there. They've made it very clear that they plan to move on via trade with Garoppolo, and so they might just be waiting for a suitor. And also, I mean, with the Garoppolo situation, I don't know where the resolve will be, because obviously you can roster him for the entirety of 2022, keep him there, just don't play him, and then get a 3rd round pick as a compensatory selection in return. 49ers have seemed to value those 3rd round compensatory selections.
Yes, they do.
Highly. And so that could be an alternative, because a lot of people are saying, let's trade him. I know I brought up scenarios like the Texans and the Panthers on previous shows, but the thing is, the compensation in return has to appease the 49ers to the point that they think that that's better than just waiting and getting a 3rd round selection. I think it'd be smart to move on, because especially, I mean, if you cut him, you have that much, or even trade him, you have that much extra space in free agency. And even if you don't utilize it, you carry it over to next year, and you're set in 2023 when the cap hit goes up to really fully build your roster. And if not, you have midseason acquisitions that you can make with that extra money. So
Yep.
I do think it's valuable to keep that money. But I really don't think, regardless of what they do, I don't think that I wouldn't be shocked in a way, or I wouldn't be unhappy if Garoppolo was on the roster at training camp. It just might mean he maybe hit a snag in his when coming back to health, or coming back to be healthy, or he hasn't fully passed medicals yet or something like that, because I don't think he's going to take snaps in training camp personally. But on the Trey Lance thing, I know the Matt Lombardo report, he's a Fansided reporter. And to me, honestly, I thought it was for engagement. 49ers Twitter, one thing they're really, really good at is just getting engagement. So whenever something like that, I know obviously there was the former scout type of stuff, and every to engage with that, when to engage with that, even if it's like a bullet, like a crazy take. That's what happens. So Matt Lombardo get a ton of engagement just from that. So I do think that it was primarily because of engagement. And I mean, there are people probably who were unhappy with the Trey Lance pick. Rich Scangarello,
Yep.
I'm not exactly sure to say his name. The former 49ers quarterbacks coach. He was a guy who appeared to be high on Lance during the draft process and disliked the not Lance, Mac Jones, and disliked the Lance pick. Obviously, he's no longer in the building. Maybe he's sharing information, who knows? But within the 49ers organization, at least from what we've seen over the past couple of months, just going off their own words, they both talked, both Lynch and Shanahan have talked at length about how much they've been impressed with Lance and how they expect him to be a starter and think he's starting caliber material going into 2022. Shanahan even alluded that he could have started him last year. Had the 49ers not gone on that winning streak, he probably would have started him to end the season last year. So, I mean, there's a good amount of information out there, tons of quotes, tons of anything that you can find that have that show that the 49ers do believe in Trey Lance. And so that's where I'm going to leave it at that. I don't necessarily think Lombardo's report holds any weight alongside the reports that we've seen over the entire offseason.
Yeah, that pretty much sums up it, what I wanted to know. I want to circle back to the draft real quick. Any undrafted free agents that the 49ers have signed that have caught your eye, whether it be Donovan West, Jason Poe, Tay Martin, Leon O'Neal? What's your take on all that?
Yeah, so I mean, there were three guys that I really liked out of this class. And I mean, there's a lot, but the top three guys that I had on my list were two you mentioned, and Donovan West, he was my favorite of the group. Jason Poe was my second favorite of the group. And the third guy was an underrated guy, linebacker Jeremiah Gemmel out of UNC. He was a guy who I actually really liked. So obviously West, he brings the versatility. He had played interior offensive line, both at the guard and center position. I think he's best suited to play center at the NFL level, but he was involved in an outside zone scheme. He's got pretty solid athleticism and also pretty solid ability itself at the center position over there at Arizona State. So I think the familiarity with the scheme could help him compete to start at center should Alex Mack not return. We also have Jason Poe, who I think is a freakish athlete, crazy at that 300-pound frame. I think he is a little bit of a smaller guy, so you probably do have him also be a future center. And so I do like I do like the post signing as well. I thought that provided just some extra depth, and those two could be your future future players at the center position. Probably move on from Jake Brendel next year with these two guys in the room. I do expect both of them to make the 53 because if the 49ers choose to move on from one of them or try and sneak them on the practice squad, they're not going to make it. I think that they'll get picked up, just like Justin Hilliard was picked up last year, the main 49ers UDFA signing, linebacker at Ohio State by the New York Giants. So those are the top two offensive linemen. Obviously, I think they both could be starting caliber players in the NFL. And then Jeremiah Gemmel, I really liked him. I thought he is a bit undersized, 6 foot, about 225 out of UNC, but instinctive, nicknamed the General because he's a leader over there at UNC. I like the intangibles, but I also like the range that he possesses despite potentially running like a 4.7. I think that the range is pretty good for a guy of his size and speed. And I think we've seen countless times and times again where these undersized guys, right? The reason that they go undrafted is because teams don't necessarily know how to use them. A good example I used the other day was Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, projected, in my opinion, projected to be a top 20 pick over there in last year, ends up falling to 53 because teams just don't know how to use a player of Owusu-Koramoah's caliber. And so it just takes that one team knows to utilize them. Obviously, the 49ers have a great track record of developing linebackers. And I think if we can keep him on the practice squad, he'd be a great option to keep, potentially replace a guy like Demetrius Flanagan-Fouls going into 2023 as a pretty solid special teamer with good tackling ability.
Wow. You are just like a fountain of information. That's awesome. What's if you had to give a grade to the 49ers draft, letter grade? I personally gave them a B-.
Yeah.
What would you give the 49ers as far as a draft grade?
I think you nailed it on the head. I said a B minus to a B, somewhere around there for the draft itself, and then I bumped it up to a B plus with the UDFA signings.
Okay.
Yeah, I do think B minus. I don't necessarily knock him as hard as other people do, because I don't think it's that easy to get a draft without a first round selection, especially in a with like teams having 2 to 3 first round selections, like, and other teams just killing the draft. I don't necessarily think they had one of the stronger drafts out of any team, but that's understandable given the capital that they had. But yeah, I do think that it was probably a B to, or sorry, a B minus to a B, somewhere around
Yeah, I'm getting B minus, B, solid B overall. Uh,
there. Yeah.
A plus undrafted or A minus undrafted. Yeah, it's funny. Like, my two issues I had at the draft were that they didn't address safety until they
Yeah.
went to the undrafted free agent route, and I feel like maybe they reached at running back. Those are my only issues.
Hmm.
Um, a lot of their picks are, depth in just addressing and readdressing areas that they had issues with last year. Corner, they needed a lot. The corner needed a lot of help, so they double dipped in the draft.
Right.
Um,
Womack
then
and then
they
Castro Fields over there in
Yep,
the
and
sixth.
then they double dipped in at least the list I have here. They in the free agent, undrafted free agent running back again. They took a shot at running back once again. So I'm pretty that's B minus. I mean, I could really say it's a B plus if I wanted to, but
Yeah.
yeah, B minus is my grade. We won't know, Rohan, until training camp and the season starts, what, if anything, what anything is right now.
Mhm.
49er faithful forever. We touched on that earlier. We think he's definitely going to be in the rotation to be maybe the starting slot corner. There's, with Jason Verrett being re-signed and Diamondor Lenore, that's definitely going to be a position that is will be interesting. Interesting training camp position. I mean, Diamondor Lenore, I feel, has the most pressure on him right now because he's the, what do they call it, the incumbent guy
Yeah.
from last year, and then you got the old
He
veteran, the old
could
wily
like,
veteran.
be honestly, like with so much depth, he could even be in danger of losing his spot on the 53 man with so
Yeah.
much depth. Because I mean, we have 10 guys in that room that could potentially compete, and maybe you slide some of those guys over to safety. But after an underwhelming, in a way, rookie season where he was torched in coverage on certain occasions, I remember the Seattle game was one really pops in my mind. Diamond Lenore definitely is in, like, he's a fifth round pick. It's not unheard of to move on from a fifth round pick after
Yep.
a year, after 2 years. So I think that that could be a potential case for sure.
I want to transition to the giant elephant in the room.
Yeah.
This Debo Samuel stuff, man. What do you make of it? We got not following the 49ers, scrubbing the account, refollowing the 49ers. His brother posts a picture of him hugging some of his teammates. Did, I
It's
report
a,
it because I'm a 49ers channel, but like, seriously, I do it just for people to be like, why are you reporting this? Or why are you making videos on this? Man, it's because it's ridiculous. Yeah, I have to address it. What's your take?
Yes, I mean we've seen it. We've been like along for the entire ride, and Debo Samuel has used social media kind of as his way of power, right? He doesn't have leverage in the situation. The 49ers hold team control over him for the next couple of years because they have him on the rookie deal this year. They could franchise tag him for the years, the next 2 years after that. And so, what's his way of like expressing his feelings? It's through social media. And so I think this is just another way of him expressing his feelings through social media, refollowing the 49ers on Instagram. And I know a lot of people are dismissing it, saying it's not a big deal. Well, the other news that we saw from Debo Samuel earlier in the year, stripping his account of all things 49ers, his brother saying that they're going to request a trade, and then all of that coming to light when just Jeff Darlington reported that Debo Samuel asked him about the trade request. And when you line up all the dates, the day that Debo Samuel requested the trade appeared to be the day that he scrubbed his Instagram account. So it all lines up. So while we want to dismiss the social media antics, I think it is somewhat important. And so while we saw the bad side of it earlier this offseason, I think after the draft, there is a realization that Debo Samuel's best chance to make money in 2022 is with the 49ers in terms of a long-term extension. Because I don't think they're going to be, they've been like pretty content with keeping him, regardless of how that will be it on the rookie deal or be it on an extension. So I think that's his best chance to make money. Additionally, I think there's a good ground now because there's an equilibrium point. AJ Brown's deal came in, the details came in, and now, so you probably end up with a deal between his and Tyreek Hill's. For those that don't know, Tyreek Hill signed a 4-year, $120 million deal. About 72.2 is fully guaranteed, 52.2 million is guaranteed at signing. The most important are the two numbers I've said in the back, fully guaranteed and then guaranteed at signing. AJ Brown, 4 years, 100 million, 57 million guaranteed, 40 million guaranteed at signing. So you'd expect that guaranteed at signing number to be between 40 million and 52.5 million. And then you'd expect the fully guaranteed number to be around 57 to 72 million. Those are the two, like, kind of, now we kind of have a range, right? Whereas it might have been Deebo Samuel had to, like, I guess, continue to eclipse the market in a way. Now we have like a good balance. And I think this is the good ground for the 49ers and Deebo, where they can reach somewhere in the middle and create, like, get the extension that both Deebo wants and the 49ers want. So just in terms of contracts, I'd expect it to be him playing still on his rookie deal. The bonus, signing bonus, obviously he'll get that. That'll increase his cap hit just a bit. And then 2 extra years of fully guaranteed money.
Yeah, I just don't see how getting better, moving on from a guy like him. A lot of people say, they, like I brought up to Larry, it's like, it's cool to talk about draft picks and trading and getting draft picks, but you have to hit on those draft picks too. So to me, it's always best to keep what you got. Try as hard as your hardest to keep who you got, especially someone like Deebo. I know he's only had one really super year of production, but whatever, like, he's worth it. I think he's worth it. I think a lot of people think he's worth it. Like Itchy said in the comments, Deebo just wants his money. And Ken Martin agrees that's all Deebo wants. And I can't disagree whatsoever. The comment that OBJ kept the Deebo drama going is totally true. I don't know what that's all about. He needs to just worry about his rehab and just be quiet, So Ken Martin thinks that Trey Sermon will emerge this coming season. He's going to have to. I think he's safe personally because he's a 3rd round pick.
Yeah.
But, the Niners pretty much are telling him, like, listen, you are not what we thought we drafted. And so they went and they doubled down and they got pretty much the same guy who maybe it does his job better than what they thought he was going to do the job initially when they drafted him. So interesting to say the least. I want to jump to the safety situation. I'm shocked that the 49ers didn't address safety in the draft. I thought that would be maybe their 3rd round pick, when they picked the running back. What's your take on the safety situation? Are they really going to go in to the season with Tavarius Moore and Hufanga and a smattering of other players? Or, I mean, the Tyrann Mathieu thing, that ship has sailed. So is Jaquiski Tartt a possibility, or do you think that ship has sailed? What's your take on that?
I mean, the safety situation I've been very kind of critical of. I thought the 49ers had to improve in safety at the safety position this offseason, and I thought they had the best way to do it. There were 8 starting caliber safeties in my kind of thought process that could have been acquired by the 49ers on a very, very team-friendly deal. The highest deal that I saw, apart from obviously the top guy in Tyrann Mathieu, who signed for $11 million, Jayron Kearse only got $5 million a year. I thought he was a phenomenal safety last year, especially as a tackler. You had guys like Terrell Edmonds re-signed with Pittsburgh on a very cheap contract. And then, I mean, if you're talking about other names, DeMonte KZ, you had Deshaun Elliott sign over there, I believe. He used to be in Baltimore. I think he's with the Lions now. But there were like 8 names there that I remember I mentioned a couple months ago that I thought could have been starters for the 49ers opposite of Jimmy Ward. And instead, when the safety market was really not there, it was super cheap to acquire him. You don't address the position with a proven talent. Instead, you get a special teamer in George Odom, who I think is a pretty solid player. Don't get me wrong, George Odom was an all-pro as a special teamer because he's a stout tackler, doesn't miss tackles, and that's important. But the 49ers already have a box safety in a way in Talanoa Hufanga. So are you saying that George Odom's just going to eclipse him on the depth chart as a box safety? Because Hufanga isn't going to play coverage. I think that's Tarvarius Moore's role at the moment.
Agree.
I don't necessarily think that I'm very happy with that. I don't think I do think the 49ers should have addressed safety in the draft. They had a prime way to do it with Nick Cross at 93. And if they didn't like Nick Cross, Kirby Joseph was there. Both of those guys went between 93 and 105 at 96 and 97 because other teams realized, oh, safety is going off the board. We need to go get our safety right now in the Indianapolis Colts and the Detroit Lions. And so I am still a little skeptical. I think this is probably the weakest group of the entire defense because you have a strong defensive line, you got a strong linebacker group, and pretty strong cornerback group with a ton of depth. Now you have safeties, and so this is where I wonder, what are they going to do? Because are they going to really start more and guys like that? Me personally, I put it out there on Twitter that I wouldn't be surprised if Dante Johnson was the starter opposite of Jimmy Ward in 2022. I think that would be an interesting thing. And I see the comment up here, Verone McKinley. Verone McKinley, unfortunately, doesn't fit our scheme because he's just not the athlete that the 49ers require for guys in coverage. Same with Leon O'Neal. I know a lot of people really liked him, and I thought he would have been drafted as well. I thought he would go drafted, but O'Neal isn't necessarily a good safety in terms of athleticism. He ran about, I think it was a 4.75, somewhere around there. And so while he's very instinctive, I'd actually be intrigued to see if they try and move him to linebacker where those deficiencies of athleticism are kind of hidden. Maybe put him on the practice squad for year one, have him have that transition to linebacker, and maybe see how he can play there where his range isn't necessarily as affected as it would be as a safety.
Bay Area Baller agrees with you and me. He's like, I'm not a big T. Moore guy. What do you guys think about him when he's healthy? Now, I was very underwhelmed.
Traverse Moore either, yeah.
And I was very underwhelmed when he had his chance. I think it was the 2019 season. He's got some athleticism, but he's consistently out of position. Consistently. Mm-hmm. You can't be that. You're the last line of defense. And you can't, like, that's the whole purpose of your position. You can't be consistently out of position when your position is to be in position because you're the last line of defense. So, I am concerned. You know, some people say what they did at corner might help them to alleviate some of the pressure on their safeties because they run a little bit more man or this or that. I don't buy that. I feel like the Niners maybe people say that the Jaquiski-Tartt relationship is kind of soured and that he's not coming back. What did you get any wind of that? Have you heard that? Because that was something I picked up on that doesn't look like a relationship that's going to be reunited.
Yeah, to my indication, that's what I've seen, and it's that it has soured in a way, and it's not necessarily that it's soured; it just didn't end in a way that you'd expect it to end if you were bringing him back. I personally don't believe Jaquiski-Tartt will return to the 49ers in 2022, although I'd love it. I think that he would be undoubtedly the starting safety opposite of Jimmy Ward if he returned in 2022. However, I don't think that he would be a 49er in 2022. What's
your take? A non-49er related question. What's your thoughts on the Hopkins suspension from the Cardinals? I'm interested to see the schedule. Of course, we play them in the week when he's probably going to be back. Which, of course,
yeah. But I'd expect them. I'd expect us to play the Cardinals at least once before then. We played them week 5 last year. Probably, I'd hope we play them a little bit earlier in the season, obviously without Hopkins. But I think the Cardinals kind of knew this. Like, obviously, the league kind of only indicates that this happens once everyone's been notified and things. They probably knew about this during the draft. That's why they went out and got Marquise Brown, because Brown is now your wide receiver number 1 while Hopkins is out, and then slots back to that wide receiver number 2. So it's an interesting thing because it does hurt the Cardinals. I think they struggled a bit last year when Hopkins was out with his own injury. And obviously, Kyler Murray, it's a maker. Well, it's not necessarily a make or break because I think he's going to get paid regardless. But a ton of his production is helped by the presence of Hopkins over there. And so this definitely hurts the Cardinals. And I think solidifies them as the 3rd team now in the division because they're going to be without their best player or one of their best players for the first 6 weeks of the year.
Yeah, you're right. That move that they made for Hollywood does. Now that I think about it, they knew prior. They just it's not our information to know. We don't need to know it. So,
Mhm.
thoughts on the rookie minicamp coming up, the 13 to the 15? Do you look for anything in minicamp? Are you interested to? I don't know.
Yeah, so
What do you get out of a rookie minicamp? I personally don't know. Like, what happens? Is it just a lot of classroom work? Do they get on the field? Like, I don't know.
I think there is a good amount of conditioning that'll happen, and then like it's not contact, right? You don't have
Right.
contact until training camp. You don't even have contact in OTAs. It's 7-on-7s, non-contact drills. So you'll have a lot of drills and non-contact stuff. I'm actually hoping that I can go to mini camp this year,
Nice.
go out and see the players and obviously the undrafted guys. But yeah, it's about essentially it's about what do you call it? Getting these guys back into shape, drills, probably learning a good amount of learning the playbook as well, and then implementing their scheme with certain different directions that they want. Someone asked, Lynch just mentioned it. Yeah, yeah. This was at the end of the year, or the one we just saw post
Mhm.
draft. Like they haven't had communication, but they won't rule it out. I mean, it's a way of saying that they haven't really discussed it as a possibility, but you never like rule out any possibility.
Yeah, you don't ever want to burn any bridge because you never know. You might have might be a massive injury that happens to say Jimmy Ward or something, and they need to slide somebody into there.
Right,
So,
right. And
um,
to that point, real quick, I actually think Tart isn't going to get signed throughout the year. I think he'll probably wait on a team for an injury and then slot in there because I don't know how he'd react to a backup role because I think he's a starting caliber safety in the NFL. So I think he'd probably wait for an injury and then get a 1-year prove it deal with a bunch of incentives to try and hit that. And yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on what Tart will do, like going into this year.
and so you were touching on the mini camps. You said it's mostly just conditioning. You said, and
Yeah, it'll be conditioning. I mean, you might see some seven. I don't think you'll see 7-on-7s actually, but it'll be defense only drills, offense only drills, and then conditioning, that kind of stuff.
yeah, it's not really much news to tell you the truth. Dude, the undrafted free agents come in as well in the rookie mini camp. Is that correct?
Yeah, they do. They do.
Okay.
Yeah, undrafted free agents. Like everybody, like they're the guys that got invites, like the mini camp tryout invites. I know one of those guys, Oregon back, the former Oregon. I think he was at Boise State last year. Cyrus Habibi Iloko. But we have a couple of those guys where you get invited to mini camp and then they can choose to sign you to a deal. I don't think the guys will be signed to a deal this year just because we already have a full 90-man. But there are guys that have invites, and then there's just the drafted signed guys and the
Right.
drafted signed, like the undrafted guys and the drafted guys that we got.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. There's guys that come in that aren't part of the original class that's announced after the draft. They're like pretty
Right.
much like I can't say street free agents, but it's like, hey, you want to come to a tryout, and then pretty much that's what it is.
Right.
Jagueo, I don't know how to say your name, but I think maybe that's it. Jagueo. Thank you for the $5 super chat. He says, "How concerned should we be if we lose Mack, Tart, and McGlinchey struggles coming back from his serious injury? Who will fill the edge opposite Bosa?" I think a lot of people could fill the edge opposite Bosa. We have the draft pick Drake Johnson or Drake Johnson or Drake Jackson. Drake Jackson.
Jackson.
You have Teray that we signed from the Colts. You have a smattering of others. You'd be interesting to see if they actually keep Samson Ebukam or if they move off of that deal because that would save them like $6 million, $6 million.
Yeah.
McGlinchey looks like he's on course to play. He looks
Yeah.
really good. He's
Yeah.
he's heavy. He said he feels like he's ahead of schedule. I mean, he said he has a little bit of soreness, but that's usually what happens when you're doing rehab. I had shoulder soreness when I was doing PT on my shoulder surgery for the second time. It hurts because you're using it every single time, and they make you do exercises that test the limit. They try to move around scar tissue. So that that wasn't a big surprise when he says mostly I'm pain free. I totally understand that. And the Mac thing, I think they addressed it with a couple of different moves. The free agency, undrafted free agents, and in the draft, I some people say that Brunskill could be a move at say a corner or a center. And then you said Jake Brendel as well could be someone that could be moved into center possibly. So I hope that answers your questions on that.
Yeah.
Trying to think what else. Camp competition. Well, we might have come to the end of the line, man. I think I had some topics for another show that I never got to the other day, so I figured I'd keep them on here, and we banged them out pretty well.
Perfect.
We touched on the Verrett signing, camp competition. Oh, well, that's one question. Other than the undrafted free agents and the rookies, any camp competitions that you have your mind on as far as like wide receiver 3, who's the starting corners, who starts opposite Nick Bosa, at least on passing downs? So any crazy wild things that you think might happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a good amount of competition. Well, a couple things maybe non-rookie related that I'd be intrigued, because obviously the rookie related stuff would be nickel, maybe safety, maybe obviously a couple of positions on the offensive line. But at wide receiver, will Ray McCloud be given the opportunity to eclipse Juwan Jennings? That's something I want to be interested to see, because I think Juwan Jennings deserves that wide receiver 3 role, and I think
Me
he's a
too.
little versatile with that big body kind of option where I think that'd be a little more valuable. But I do want to see if McLeod is kind of given an opportunity, given the amount of money that he got paid, and especially it being on a 2-year deal. The other one is what was I thinking? Oh yeah, the one you just brought up, defensive line opposite of Bosa. I wonder who's going to get the first team reps, because to me, I don't really care who starts at defensive line, because it's normally the guys who sub packages, right? Pass rushing downs is where it matters the most.
Yep.
Who's going to really get the most snap count? Because Arden Key, right, who's probably our second most valuable defender, or third most behind Armstead and Bosa last year, didn't play over 50% of the snaps in any of the games last year. He played, I think his total snap count was around in the 40s somewhere. And so that's one thing. And for me, yeah, so those are the two, because I want to see, will Teray kind of beat out Ebucom or something like that, or will Jordan Willis or Menahue break out? Who's going to win that role? That kind of thing. Because obviously, I don't think. Sorry, but I don't think that they're necessarily at a crossroads to cut Ebucom right now. But if one of those guys does beat out Ebucom, that definitely provides that conversation, given the amount of money that Ebucom is given now.
49er Breakdown says that one-on-ones will be fun to watch between corners and wide receivers. It's such a hard thing to watch and judge, because you don't want your corners to get smoked, right? But you also don't want to see your wide receivers get shut down. So it's kind of like this weird dichotomy when people are covering training camp. Like, how do you look at it? Like, as a person who's observing training camp, like yourself, like, do you go into it saying, today I'm going to see the wide receivers and how they go about doing things, but tomorrow it's all about the defensive backs? Like, I don't even know how I would judge something like that. I'd be like, yo, Ayuk freaking crushed so-and-so. And then I'd be like, oh man, he's going to have to come back the next rep and show what's up. So to me, that'd be difficult to cover. I wouldn't even know the first place to start. Barry Baller says that's crazy. Team sleeping on Tart, but he's good. He is good. I wish they would bring him back, because then that would pretty much solidify everything, honestly, to me. And he's not a long-term solution, but like I said, every position can't be the perfect player. I mean, you can't have a 5-star recruit at every position. This isn't college football. This isn't what do you call what college? Nick Saban coaches what college again? I forget.
Alabama.
Yeah, this isn't Alabama. You don't have a 5-star recruit everywhere. So 49ers Breakdown says, I think Hyder gets the opportunity to start to begin with. I think so too. And
I'll disagree with that.
You disagree?
I'm not that high on Hyder. I honestly think he's one of the better candidates to be cut at the end of the training camp. I don't
Interesting.
think but yeah, I want to hear your knowledge on that. Why do you think?
I don't know. The more, sometimes I can be easily swayed. You're right. I feel you're right. The Niners made Arden Key look like a superstar last year, at least towards the end of the season.
Right.
And they say the same thing with Hyder the year before. Only reason I say yeah is because he just seems like, he's been here before. He knows the system. It might be an easier transition. But you're right. He could be, because we have Ebucom, he could, I would assume they want him more as an outside rusher. I don't know if he's base. He could be a base down guy. I'm trying to think who would be your base end on the other side of.
I'd assume that's where Ebicom currently stands. I think
Okay.
that's where his role is right now. And so that's why I'm interested, right? Will someone beat him out for that base edge role? And if so, will the 49ers then move on from Ebicom? Because I remember I tweeted out back in like early March, the 49ers can save money if they cut Ebicom. And when I tweeted that, I didn't necessarily mean that they should cut him, but I
Right.
said that was like his cap hit, I think, is a little extra. And I was interested. What are they going to do with the position to improve, to potentially move on from that contract, or structure it in a way where you don't pay him $8.25 million in 2022? And so I was thinking an extension could be possible, something like that. But for me, like now, right, we have so much depth. We added Teray, we added Drake Jackson to the mix, and we added a guy like Hyder to the mix, right? You have so many different guys in the mix. And while I think Ebicom is better than Hyder, I do think that, money does come into factor. So that's the interesting part on who's going to beat out who in training camp.
49ers breakdown kind of similar. He's kind of similar in his thoughts, but he says that Hyder led the 49ers in sacks 2 years ago and plays really well for Kasurik. I think Sampson is likely the candidate to get cut. So he's kind of has your viewpoint, but flipped. He thinks that Hyder maybe has the better chance just because of his familiarity. And it's hard to say. To me, it's a good problem to have, right?
Definitely.
When you're cutting good players.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Hey, man, it's been a good one. I appreciate you coming on.
Definitely.
It's West Coast, and you're right. So it's still a little early for you. It's like 7.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I had fun. It's a little redundant when you cover the draft, so I figured we'd go at it a little bit differently with grades. And
this was definitely good. Yeah, because you got to cover a lot of topics anyway. So this was nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, yeah, thank you for bringing me on. I had a blast, and I'd always be down to come back anytime. And anybody still in the chat, make sure you go subscribe to 49ers First Takes. Aaron over here, he brings on great guests. That he himself provides great content, keeps you up to date with the 49ers. So make sure you subscribe to his channel over there, 49ers First Takes. Hit that sub button right now.
Yeah, and the same thing for you guys. Go over to Rohan's channel, Rohan Chakravarthi. He's got his own YouTube channel. Follow his Twitter. I want to see more people in that live chat, man. Like, what's up? He knows his stuff. He knows more than me. I don't understand it. I shouldn't have more viewers than a guy that's going to be at training camp this year. That doesn't make sense. I'm not saying don't watch me. I'm just saying watch me and Rohan. So, yeah, I definitely had fun too. I had Larry on the other day. I think having him on really early in the morning, that was an odd stream. He looked like he was half asleep. I was out of sorts. It was just like a weird, technical difficulties. I was just like, after this stream, I felt very crestfallen. I was just like, so I feel like the night streams are just more my style. I think they're a lot of people's style. Morning streams are just odd because nobody's watching if you're West Coast. Like if I have a 10 o'clock stream, it's 7 a.m. on the West Coast.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah, nobody cares about listening to me.
Like noon over there, 9 a.m. Maybe that's a little more my style. In the morning, at least, that's the earliest that I'll go. But yeah, I feel you.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. We got a little bit more news to come, maybe with the rookie minicamp, and then it's going to be a little bit of a lull coming. We're going to have a little bit of a lull of news, and it's going to be weird for 49er content creators like myself and yourself and other people to find stuff to talk about. We do have the schedule release, and I plan on having to have a couple people on during schedule release week. Different perspectives. I want to hear different people's takes on the record. I'm one of those people. I went really aggressive last year with our record, and this year I'm a little bit more measured because I look at our competition and our schedule strength, and it's pretty tough. So, and then you have to factor in, we have Trey at quarterback. There's definitely going to be some struggles there. If you think he's going to come in and, be the second coming of Jesus Christ, it's just not going to happen. It'll happen eventually, but you got to give it time. So, I'm excited, but I'm also a person who lives in the real world. So, thank you everybody for coming on. Thank you for the super chats and the participation in the chat, guys. Sorry I didn't get to everybody's comments. Sometimes when I have people on that have an insight or a little bit of knowledge that surpasses mine, I like to listen to their take on things. So nothing personal about the chat. It's just I like to learn, and it doesn't matter if they're younger than me. We all can learn something. So that was kind of my take tonight. So thank you everyone for coming on. Appreciate it. Everybody have a good rest of your night, and I'll see you guys on the flip side. Good night, everyone.